Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to the show. You know, Rise Against just put out a record and it seems everybody hates it. My name's Dan Frampton, this is Punk News Now. Likes and subs, let's go. So a couple months back, I did this whole video on Rise Against. I did a deep dive on their discography, found out what makes them tick, but more particularly, I found out what makes me tick when it comes to this band. Turns out, I enjoyed the first couple albums, I really like what the band stands for, but then things started to take a whole dad rock turn the farther we got into the current day. And I don't blame them for doing it, you know, they got bills to pay and families to feed and that kind of thing. They just started making music that wasn't really for me. But on Friday, they put out a record that isn't for anybody apparently, other than the most sycophantic critics out there. But their entire fan base, everybody on Twitter, everybody that I can find, hates this new record that Rise Against just put out called Ricochet. Now the one thing I really enjoyed about Rise Against and all their previous albums is how often they worked with Bill Stevenson and Jason Livermore over there at the Blasting Room. Bill Stevenson is famous for being the drummer in The Descendants, the drummer in Black Flag, the writer of a bunch of really famous punk songs, and he had the magic fingers when it came to putting together a Rise Against album. And they knew that. They tried other producers before and it didn't quite work out. So why would they ever deviate from that path? But deviate from that path, they certainly did this time around when they went with Catherine Marks. I don't know who Catherine Marks is. I don't listen to Catherine Marks albums. She did albums for like Boy Genius and Alanis Morissette, the Manchester Orchestra or something like that. I don't know, man. A bunch of bands I do not listen to. So it was a very peculiar choice to have their new record be produced by Catherine Marks. But I was willing to give it a shot. I was gonna listen to this thing with an open mind. So I did that, and as I was going through the track list, I realized, oh my god, every song sucks worse than the last. Every choice is so bad. The production is so muddy. Sometimes the guitar's very, very quiet, and then sometimes the guitar's very, very loud. Like you'd think an acoustic palm-muted part would be a quiet guitar part, but for some reason, Catherine Marks takes the quiet palm-muted acoustic guitar part and makes it louder than the vocals. So I'm sitting there going, what are these production choices? What is going on here? And on top of all that, there's a bunch of vocal effects that really should not have been used. So I was thinking, am I the only one that hates this record? I can't be the only one. But Rise Against is like a tenured band. They've been around for a long time. Their fan base is kind of baked in, so I was expecting like a tepid reaction. Turns out there's a very passionate reaction. That is one of hatred. So here's the album right here. I'm not gonna put you through any of the torture that I went through listening to this thing. You don't need to worry about it. I'm not gonna do a reaction to this thing. I do not want to listen to these songs ever again. So before we get into the public reaction to this thing, I want to give you my formal written review of this record. This might be the worst album I have ever heard. Bad job, guys. Really dropped the ball on this one. How is it this bad? Universally panned is the understatement of the decade. I've never seen an entire fan base unanimously reject an album so vociferously and immediately before. Easily the worst album of the year, and there's been some stinkers. Bad songwriting, bad tones, bad vocal effects, bad everything. Horrible, awful, and putrid aren't strong enough adjectives. Torturous. And actually, now that I read that back, there might be one record that is worse than it. But I gave this thing a goose egg. 0 out of 100. Awful album. Normally, I don't want to give albums a 0. Normally, it feels like there's at least some effort there. You know, people came together, put together a record, art was made. So giving it a 0 feels kind of evil. So I don't really like to do it, especially all that often. And this year, I've given out 2 zeros. I feel like such a bad person out here listening to this music, but when I hear zeros, I'm gonna call them zeros. Rise Against Ricochet is a big fat 0. The other one, if you're not familiar, is the new Attack Attack record. Yeah, a new Attack Attack record in the year 2025, and it also got a 0. That thing sucks. And then just going through these reviews on albumoftheyear.org, I'm seeing so many in the red. It is rare that everybody hates an album. Like I said, the sycophantic critics are all gonna give it like 8s and 9s and stuff, but believe me, no, this record does not deserve an 8. We gotta listen to the people. Coffee Pot gives it a 15 out of 100. One of the biggest disappointments of the year. unbelievably bad production and honestly just uninspired songwriting hold this entire album back. Yeah, absolutely. I find it hard to argue with any of that. Vorgasauce gives it a 35 and says, 2 things I want to get out of the way. 1, people that say the mix is awful need to stop listening on their phone speakers. The mix is fine. It's honestly pretty good. All the instruments are pretty easy to hear, and it has a nice gritty feel to it when it needs to. I'm gonna disagree with you. I listened to this not on shitty speakers. I listened to this on very decent speakers, and I could tell that this palm-muted acoustic guitar part on the fucking song State of Emergency was way too loud. And then the whoa-oh-oh hook thing on this thing, literally unlistenable. In my opinion, State of Emergency was the worst all-around song. Every misdemeanor and felony that this album commits all comes together in a disgusting condensed state on the song State of Emergency. They literally couldn't have given it a more ironic name if they tried. But that's just Album of the Year critic snobs or whatever. I went to Twitter. I went to their Twitter. Rise Against official page tweeted out, "Our new album Ricochet is out now." And it has this beautiful little graphic. So I'm expecting some fans down here in the replies being like, "We love the new record. Great direction, guys. Can't wait to see you guys out on tour." That kind of thing. That is not what we got, not by a long shot. I added to the conversation by saying, "Bill Stevenson is in a ball crying somewhere." Man, and that somewhere is the blasting room. He's like, this room is for you guys. I made this room. Why didn't you come back to the blasting room? It's beautiful here. But they had different ideas. They went with Catherine Marks and they made a bad album. For some reason, that was their choice. Rich says, "If I could understand what you were saying, it would probably be great." Oblivious77 adds to the conversation and says, "I don't see the vision y'all had, but this album had me questioning my hearing. It feels incomplete. Vocals sound muddy, on top of being an echoey disaster." Yeah, it's pretty bad. Someone else comes in and says, "Very weak album." Yep, that's a very succinct comment. Extremely weak. It's their worst album. It's horrible. Not any decent songs. Mamma mia. People are not enjoying this record. Their fans, the most passionate people about this band, are completely rejecting it. Choices were certainly made on this album. What the hell happened? I didn't enjoy this at all. Adam says, "I just finished it. My heart is broken. I didn't enjoy a single track. Along with this and the fact that we're never getting those songs from the Revival tour, I have to give up on this band. I'm moving on. Genuinely, this fucking hurts." Laughs and Facts says, "Respectfully, fire whoever produced and mixed this." Well, that would be Catherine Marks of Boy Genius fame. Bill! Where's Bill? Nobody would have been saying this if Bill was on the tracks. Bill knows what he's doing. Did the vocals get fixed? From when, Corey? From when they put out the singles? No, they did not. They're still very bad. Rick Mackley says, "Did you really just ruin a whole album with that horrible vocal sound? Unlistenable." The fans hate it, the people hate it, Twitter hates it, everybody hates this album. They made so many bad choices in a time where we need a band like Rise Against. But Rise Against are just dropping the ball across all spectrums right now. And I didn't even talk about the political aspect of it. And to be honest, I don't even want to touch that aspect. If the music was good and it hit the mark, then yeah, I would love to talk about that aspect. But this album just doesn't inspire that kind of conversation. If it sounded good, if the mix was great, if the songwriting was strong, then yeah, people might galvanize behind the message of a Rise Against. But that is just not gonna happen off this weak batch of songs. Terrible job. If you haven't listened to this thing yet, don't. Avoid it at all costs. But if you did listen to it, I want to know what you thought about it down there in the comments. I also want to know, are you a Rise Against girly? Tell me about all your awesome little Rise Against experiences down there as well. If you don't want to say words, then you can just type pancake emojis and I'll respond to them at any point. But if you're here within the first 3 hours, you know that I will reply. Goodbye, see you later, and have a good one.